This is Mini Motorways. It's a sequel to Mini Metro. Mini Metro was a game where you sort of arranged, it looked like a subway line or a tram line, kind of depended on the context. But the idea was there were a bunch of passengers that needed to get to destinations, and your job was to sort of, plan out this transit map that would allow them to get there. And they would start pouring more and more stations and more passengers onto you until eventually the whole thing collapses. And so this challenge of the game was to last as long as you could before your inevitable demise. And Mini Motorways is very much the same thing, only instead of like a mass transit line with sort of very predictable cars taking people from place to place, this is more of a kind of an American style road map and highway map where it's a lot of individual vehicles instead of things like trains. So my son loves to play this game with me when it's like bedtime. It's a very relaxing game. In fact, because it's so late at night right now, I'm kind of afraid I'm going to fall asleep playing it. Not because the game isn't interesting, but because the game is so chill and relaxed. So let's try Dar es Salaam. That's sort of a favorite for me and my son. So it starts you with a very simple problem to solve, which is just we got to get people from this spot over to that spot. No big deal, right? So the world is made up of these destination buildings over on the right and these houses. The houses have cars and the destination buildings want people. And so the building will get sort of these little black markers on them that say, hey, I want a person to come here. And I think it usually represents a specific person in a specific house with a specific car. And so you have to try to connect every house of a certain color to all the matching buildings of that color so that the passengers can get from one place to the other. And once you've done it, there's usually a lot of waiting around and sort of sitting back and watching your little cars move around, which is, that sounds like it might be dull, but it's actually kind of satisfying when you've built something to sort of sit back and just sort of watch your little people play out. It's kind of like when I was playing Station Flow the other day, just sitting back and watching Station Flow move, all the little characters moving around from one place to the other along the paths that you've laid out, is actually a really satisfying experience. So the more complicated this gets, the more satisfying it is to sort of sit back and watch. Okay, so now it's gotten complicated because we've got this new thing. I can't easily just draw a path directly to this guy. I kind of have to take a roundabout kind of route. So you'll notice right above me here, we've got these icons showing how many road segments I have left. Now, if my road segments start to get a little bit too precious, I can actually cut some corners. Like I can do that, which it takes one less road segment to cover the same ground. It doesn't look quite as pleasing though, so a lot of the times I will actually do less efficient things just because they look nicer. Now you'll notice this building just turned into a round building. Round buildings will make demands for passengers more quickly, more often than the square buildings will. And so, it starts to get a little bit more demanding. Okay, so we passed through week 1. I get to choose a couple bonus things. So first off, I'm going to grab some extra road segments, and then I get to decide, do I want a traffic light or do I want a bridge? Now, I'm in kind of the middle of the desert right now, but I'm eventually going to want bridges, and so far, I actually have not found the traffic lights to be that useful. Usually, when I place traffic lights in the game, they're supposed to be able to improve the traffic flow, but it's very rare that I have a place to put one that actually makes it better. Usually, by holding up the traffic in one direction and opening it up for the other, it actually makes all my problems worse. So I avoid traffic lights like crazy. My son is the opposite. He's 5. Whenever he sees a traffic light, he wants a traffic light. And I'm like, you're just making the game harder for yourself, but he doesn't buy it. So we've got another house to connect up. So far this is pretty simple, right? It's just a bunch of red houses and a bunch of red buildings. Pretty soon it's going to start introducing additional colors, which is where it starts to diversify a little bit. Like right there. Okay, so we've got a blue building as a destination. We don't yet have... Oh, here we go. Here's a blue house. So blue buildings want to get passengers from blue houses. Red buildings want to get passengers from red houses. and the two don't ever meet. Like, you never have a car from a blue house that wants to get to a red building or vice versa. So that's actually nice and simple. So usually I try to keep these pathways as independent as I possibly can, so that the cars aren't sort of, so you don't cross the streams, so you don't have like blue cars gumming up the works for you know, red pathways and vice versa. You can't keep it going that way forever. You know, you can usually start out by making them independent, but eventually they are going to have to cross and overlap, and that's when traffic starts to kind of tie up a little bit. Sometimes I do wonder if, you know, the fact that traffic lights are actually not all that useful, part of me wonders if that's actually somebody on the development team making a statement about, you know, there's a lot of like controversies among people who study traffic and you know, do city planning and work with traffic, about, like, you know, what the right way to improve traffic flows is. Some people really are, you know, a big fan of adding highways, widening streets, just making sure that you just sort of maximize the potential throughput of your highway system. While other people actually say you should restrain it. You should, you know, constrain your roads. You should have more one-way roads, or more, you know, maybe smaller roads, but more different smaller routes that you can take or you know, more complicated routes to take to places. And there's different arguments you can make either side. Some people say that, you know, if you have a lot of big wide highways, that actually increases traffic, because when people look at a big wide highway, they feel like, well, I can get anywhere I want to very quickly, and they'll tend to take more trips, so you'll end up with more people on the road. Whereas if you have narrow streets and you know, more complicated routes, people will tend to think, oh, well, you know, I should take fewer trips. You know, I should save up and, you know, go to the grocery store once a week instead of going, you know, 5 times a week. And you'll end up with fewer cars on the road because you minimized the potential throughput of your traffic system. And so it feels like, I wonder if the people who made this game had an opinion about that, and if, you know, if they're maybe trying to make a statement about, you know, like, traffic lights are not helpful, or traffic lights are helpful, bridges and highways are helpful or are not helpful. There's not a very clear message about it, though, so maybe it's just, you know, they're just throwing things into the game that makes sense to see what happens. Okay, so now I've got 3 colors. I've kept the routes relatively independent. Like, down here, I've got this red house that can only get to the red buildings and to the red network by crossing the blue, but he's only crossing, he's not sharing the highway with them, so it's not that big a deal. This place right here is bordering on dangerous because it gets so full of requests for passengers. But that's just because it's one of these huge buildings, and there's not much I can do about it. I think I'm kind of doing the best job I can of giving all of the red houses access to it. You can see it you know, over time it steadily becomes a more and more complicated network. So Awesome Twitch Dude asks if I play games on PC. Yeah, so I frequently will play a lot of indie games on PC, especially, you know, I mean, Steam and Epic are, you know, they have a ton of games that are only available on those platforms because, you know, indie developers, you know, a lot of times they'll look for their audience, they'll find their audience on places like Steam and Epic. So yeah, I get tons and tons of games there. I try not to buy, like, you know, big system hog games on PC. I usually get those on console, just because when I stream games, if the game is using a ton of system resources, sometimes that'll slow down my stream, and it'll make it so that, you know, I'll get like really sort of choppy frame rates and stuff like that. So if I'm going to play a game that's really sort of taxing the system, I'd rather play that on a console where I know I can get a decent frame rate. Okay, oh, look up here. So we've got this blue house that appeared up here, and it has no access right now to the blue network. And so I'm going to have to, let's see here, make this a little bit different. Okay, so now these yellow houses, they can still have access to the yellow network, and the blue house can go straight down through, ooh, a highway. We're going to have to see how that works in a sec. It can go straight down through and have access to the blue network. Okay, so let's have a look at what highways do. I'm going to pause for a second. So highways they can just jump over the entire network. Like right now, I've got this blue house that has to go through a bunch of these other intersections for unrelated road networks in order to get to the blue building. And that's just complicated. And so one way I could get around that is to give the blue house a highway. So this is usually a highway is it's a very valuable thing that I probably shouldn't waste on a single house, but just to show how it works. I grab a highway and I can just drag it anywhere I want. Like that. So now I can connect that blue house directly to the blue network and give it really easy access to that blue building down there without making it, go drive through all of the red cars and the gold cars to get there. Okay, and this, actually, you know what? This gold house down here is actually a much better candidate for that kind of treatment. So let's actually grab our highway and move it down here instead. You'll notice that when I move a highway, there's a ghost of the highway that stays behind. Why is that? It's because some of these blue cars used that highway to get here, and that car is pretty sure it needs to use the highway to get back. And so it leaves sort of a ghost of the highway in place so that a road that needs to use that highway can use that highway to get back. But once it takes the trip, the highway disappears. And the next time I want to start a new trip, I have to give him a different route to follow. So, oh man, we got all these gold houses showing up. I'm falling behind here. All these gold houses showing up. So yeah, you can see that there's a bunch of trip... Let's pause the game. There's a bunch of trip requests that have shown up here, and I'm starting to fall behind because I was paying, so much attention to that blue car. Okay, let's grab these guys, connect them up down here. That's not going to be very efficient. Oh, whoa, and look over here. We've got our first need for a bridge. Guess we'll connect it up like that. Okay, so we've got a couple of places where cars have to take really long trips. Like down here, luckily I've got a highway to let them jump the cars, over all of this potential interference to get over to the buildings they want to get to. And that's probably the best use of that highway. But these blue houses over here also have to go a really long way to get to their destination buildings. And so if I get a chance for another highway, I'll want to use it to connect them up. So Awesome Twitch Dude wonders if there's going to be car crashes in this. So you're watching this stream the way you would watch NASCAR, right? You're just watching for the crashes? No, there's no car crashes in this. This is just about... Oh, crap. This is just about traffic congestion, which is a bad enough problem all on its own. Okay, so here's a problem. You can see that my number of road segments is getting dangerously low. In fact, I've just run out. So what am I going to do? I probably need to find a way to minimize my use of road segments. So like, for instance, if I connect that one right there, I can use one less road segment. Similarly, right there, one less road segment. And right there, one less road segment. And while I like this gold road kind of being its own thing and not having any red cars on it, one red car or two red cars probably won't make that much of a difference, right? So I can probably do that. Is there anywhere else I can save? I mean, I've got these two parallel roads. That doesn't seem necessary, right? So let's delete a lot of this stuff and then add back this road. Okay, so I've got a much more efficient system now in terms of construction materials, like how much network I have. But it's there's a lot less road now for these cars to share, so it's going to get more congested, but I've got more materials that I can then spend to connect these guys up. notice this is down here. This is a different kind of building. I can eventually get 2 buildings on here, but it also has 2 entrances, which makes it more flexible. So it's going to demand more cars, but it also gives me more flexibility. I don't have to go to the same side all the time. Ooh, and I'm out of road tiles again. So I thought I could loop it around down below, but maybe I need to... there's no good way to connect this. Okay, let's try to make some efficiencies again. Like I can... Oh, wait. So I don't get road tiles back until the ghosts of these roads expire. So, like, for instance, this one, it's expiring behind the car that's using it. Come on, cars. Okay, yeah, so now I'm getting those road segments back. So, now I've got enough for that. And, okay, yeah, so now that several of those roads have expired, I can connect this up. Okay, yes, got some more road segments and a new highway. Okay, so first off, let's connect up any orphaned houses. Looks like I've done that. And then I was just thinking that I needed to... Yeah, the same way that I'm using this highway to funnel gold cars to the gold buildings, I think these blue buildings are way too far away from their destinations. I think I need to do the same thing with them. So I'm going to delete this route here. These 2 cars are going to have to use it anyway for now, but I'm going to draw a new road segment up this way. And then, instead of connecting this thing up to the normal... Actually, let's get rid of this. Instead of connecting this thing up to the normal network, I'm going to use a freeway. Yeah, I know it's too short. Okay. To connect it up like that. So now, all of these blue houses on the left side they now have a fast track to both of the buildings that they're supposed to be connected to. So again, you can see sort of these ghost road segments slowly disappearing as the cars move off them, and they no longer... Basically, I think that each road segment it sort of has an awareness of the existing plotted paths that already are along it, and it won't disappear, and it won't give you back your road segment until it has, until all of the pathfinding that goes across it has expired. All right, so up until this point, all of the red cars have been funneled up to these 2 buildings up here. But now they have to come down here, which is really going to kind of complicate the traffic situation. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to complicate it, but it's going to be weird. At least, so I think a lot of these blue cars that are currently on these roads might end up being gone once they start using the freeway. Now we've got at least 6 cars coming from up here, so there's going to keep being a lot of blue cars. Oh man, okay, look what they just did to us. So historically, all of the sky blue cars have been over on this side, but now suddenly we've got to connect them over here, which is going to be a disaster. Because this thing is just already connected now to this gold network, which doesn't connect with the blue network at all. So now I got to figure out how I want to connect all these things up. So it looks like this freeway might be my best bet. So now with that connection, these sky blue houses, they can follow this freeway over here to get to the sky blue house, while at the same time the dark blue houses they can use the same freeway to get to the dark blue buildings. So I think that kind of works. Oh, and this is instantly a round building, so now it's going to be demanding tons of cars all at once. That used to not even need to go that far. Oh, awesome Twitch dude just reminded me that I have not updated my Twitch information to say what game I'm playing. So this game is called Mini Motorways. So now I've updated my Twitch information. Sorry about that. Oh, crap. What? Green? No. We were not dealing with green yet before. Okay, well, so that house is okay. This house is okay. This one is going to be a disaster. What is the best way? I think up and over is probably the best way to go. But, oh, that's ugly. And it's a lot of road for one little house. Oh, this guy's got to connect up. Oh, and this green went down here. We do not want it connected there. That's how we want that connected. Because last thing we want is for that little greenhouse to be generating cars that have to go all the way around a big loop in order to get up to where the green building is. What the heck? What's this guy doing? This guy's got to take a long route to get to some of the light blue buildings. Oh, and right here. Okay, so I mean, I guess I can just connect them up that way. I don't want him to have to pass through that. Oh, I'm out of road tiles. Well, let's hope that the only place he wants to go is that building right next to him. So it doesn't cost any road tiles to connect. Like if the driveway connecting to a house doesn't count as a road tile. So as long as, you know, you've got a road right next to a house, you can always connect that house to the road that's right next to it, which is nice. So I'm just going to go all road tiles. So now I'm in much better shape. So I'm not actually dead certain that this sky blue house can send its cars straight through the parking lot. Oh gosh, let's find out if it can. Is it leaving? Okay, yeah, so it can technically do that, but that's probably better, but not much better. There, now we got lots of choices. Let's do that for the heck of it. This greenhouse needs to go up that way. This is just getting more and more complicated. So yeah, see, so this game is all about creating these death spirals where it's like eventually you get in a situation that is just so unmanageable nobody could possibly do it, and then your high score ends up getting posted on a leaderboard, and there's just a limit to how well you can do. So Awesome Twitch 2 points out that this is an Apple Arcade exclusive, and yeah, that is true. Which was kind of a surprise to me because, you know, Mini Metro, it was on several different platforms, and I played. I think I actually bought it on both my iPad and on PC because it was just such an enjoyable game. I liked having it in different places. But Mini Motorways is an Apple Arcade exclusive, and so you have to be, you know, an Apple Arcade subscriber to get it. And I get how exclusivity can be frustrating, right? You know, like if you only want to, you know, if you only have room in your budget to pay for one subscription, 2 subscriptions, all the things that are on different subscription services just, you know, feel inaccessible, and it feels, you know, kind of frustrating. That's how I kind of feel about CBS All Access shows. Like, I'll just wait for a long time and just not have access to those shows for a long time until CBS All Access does like a 30-day trial or something, or 30-day, you know, free thing. Then I'll just grab that, and for a month I'll just binge all the CBS All Access shows and then make it go away again, because just the amount of content on that network, just it isn't, most of it isn't what I want to watch. I want to watch the Star Trek shows, and that's basically all. And so I can see Apple Arcade being that for some people, where it's like, you know, there's 1 or 2 games you want to play on it, but if that's it, that's not, you know, that's often not going to be worth it. I totally understand that. For me as a game developer, a lot of the time, you know, paying for a service like that is, you know, I mean, it feels almost necessary. It's like a professional, obligation. And so that's why I think of, like TV services as being, the area where I end up having to make more of the tough decisions. All right, so again, I'm gonna grab a bunch of roadways. I think that's all right. Oh, another one over here. Not too challenging. Not putting things in places that are really weird and off the wall yet. Oh, this guy. I'm not actually sure whether it'd be better for me to connect him that direction or... Oh, actually, yeah, these red guys... Seems like they should be connected like that, maybe? Ah, these intersections are getting complicated. I try not to connect too many different roads to the same intersection. Okay, red is even going to start getting... I can't even talk, it's getting late enough. Red is going to start getting even more demanding. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So this building has hit the point where it has more than 10 passenger requests. And once you get more than 10, it replaces all 10 with this larger thing. And people who play Mini Metro will find this familiar, that it's going to count down to me losing the game. Now, as invisibly, it has a certain number of passenger requests behind the scenes. And so once it gets back down to 10 or less again, this timer will go away and it'll go back to normal. But if the timer okay, oh no, it won't go away, it'll just start counting down until it gets back to normal. And so as long as the blue cars keep coming in and keep fulfilling those passenger requests, I'm going to be fine. But if that timer runs out, that's when I die. Oh, missing a route there. Missing a route there. But isn't that just kind of pleasing to hear these little, like, blowing sounds of the passengers, being dropped off, seeing just all these little guys moving around in this network that you built. It's kind of fun to just sort of sit back and relax and enjoy it. So many. Okay, so this one is likely to become my demise because you can just see it's like that one building. This one building here is pulling cars from all over the place. It's got houses over here, it's got houses up here, and all of them are sharing roads with completely unrelated networks. And so they just got to fight through so much traffic to get here. So I would not be surprised if this is the one that kills me, or this one, because it's even further away and less convenient to a lot of these guys, and there's nothing I can do about it. I don't have any tools at my disposal to make that any easier. Oh, so Awesome Twitch Dude just did some research and found out that Mini Motorways is going to be available on Steam sometime later this year. So that's cool. And so if you're watching this video, go check it out on Steam. Maybe it's already available by now. I don't know. I don't know when you're watching this. There's another one. So usually by this point in the game, my son has gone to sleep, which is great, and I can, take him to bed, and then I still have to finish my little network here. Okay, so it looks like we got this one, we got this one. So the sky blue network is also getting overstrained, and now we've got a new red one up here. So it's even more weird, complicated trips to get all the red guys up to that point. It must be interesting sort of figuring out the decision-making process that the game makes to determine where new nodes will spawn. Because, I've played enough some of these like city maps often enough that you get used to certain patterns that it actually is trying to mess you up in specific ways and give you specific challenges. Nothing here is making me need to sort of revise the entire network wholesale. In a lot of the cases, there's nothing I could really do to make, like, this situation is bad. Like, this complicated intersection where cars with destinations going to multiple buildings are all having to pass through the same tiny space. Unfortunately, with this cluster of driveways, like, there's really nothing I can do that's any better. It's just going to be like this. And being unable to optimize it any further can, you know, feel a little bit like your hands are tied, but yeah, that's okay. So you'll notice, oh wait, tapping on that doesn't make it any bigger. Up at the very top of the screen, up there, you can see that there it's counting the number of trips that have gone on. 915, 17, you know, and that's my score. So as I progress towards absolute abject failure, because yeah, this guy is getting closer and closer, and this guy's also getting closer and closer. I'm about to lose. That number at the top is going to be my high score that I, you know, compare to other people around the world. So I'm not even bothering to connect up anymore because I'm going to fail. So 936. Not too bad. Okay, so the best I've done on this particular map is 1255. Somebody has done as well as 5,139, which is just insane. I mean, they must be very good at the game. They also must have gotten some really lucky rolls on the procedural generation of the events that are going on. But then the people down below them, you know, in the 3,000s, I mean, several people have clearly accomplished that, and that's not bad either, especially compared to my score. Also, Twitch2 points out that things really get intense fast in this game. Yeah, they totally do. But that is part of what makes it a great mobile game, right? Because, you know, they ramp it up so quickly that each session is actually fairly short and manageable, and you don't feel like this game, you know, it spends hours and hours and hours, you know, may having you build something elaborate that you know, inevitably fails. If it's going to inevitably fail, it's good that it inevitably fails, you know, around 20 minutes in instead of much longer than that. So anyway, that is Mini Motorways. So I appreciate you going on this journey with me, or these 936 journeys with me, and we will wrap this up, put up a subscribe button, all that nonsense, and I will probably head to bed because it is almost 3:30 a.m. my time.